Welcome to week 6, where we talk about the power of language. Now, this very course here that we're going to begin and dive into some of the foundations or fundamental hypnotic language. Now, you may say, why would you do that? Why is that important? Hypnotic language, one of the best ways to understand what it actually is for, is that when your mind, let's say you're not necessarily having the best day of your life, and you want to be able to communicate with the unconscious and create change or have a real conversation and resolve problems. In all reality, this is the best language to use. Now, you'll find that in life, oftentimes we meet people, and they have a not so good day, or they are having a hard day, or especially if you're in sales or in business, you'll find that sometimes you're talking to a client, and they were about to do something that's very good for them, but maybe because they had a hard day, and their mind talked them out of it. Now, instead of having those issues, especially in sales, right? They're about to buy something that would be good for their business, but they had something hard happen at home and they are not in the mood. Well, utilizing hypnotic language, you're able to help someone get out of that state, actually, and feel calm and at ease, and actually make clear, good, conducive, congruent decisions. So if anything, paradoxically, hypnotic language wakes people up out of the trance of their daily life, or out of the trance of society or societal negativity, right? So one thing that I want to begin with is that if you understand hypnotic language, you begin to understand how the human mind communicates with one another in the deep level. And you begin to understand how to speak to the unconscious, which is the center, or the domain of the emotion as well as our behavior. So true change and learning begins within the unconscious and are actually happening in the unconscious level. So if you want rapid change, fast change, effective, long-lasting change, being able to speak hypnotic language to the unconscious actually means that you're that much more able to influence the unconscious. So one of the best ways to think of the hypnotic language model or models and this module is that hypnotic language is the programming language of the mind. So now let's begin. Let's dive in. One of the first things that you want to begin to understand is how you talk. Hypnotic language is not just the structure and what you say. It's about your tonality. A lot of times people ask questions like, how are you? That upward tonality, right? It's very natural when you ask questions. However, we want you to do something slightly unnatural because the unconscious mind begins to pay attention. I imagine being able to say, things like a question in a command tonality, right? So instead of how are you, it would sound like how are you, right? Now, it may sound weird because it's a how are you question, but let's say we're talking about sales. Let's say you want something, right? And the salesperson says, would you like to buy? Versus, would you like to buy? Versus, would you like to buy? Now, very different, right? Very different. Yeah, you can actually utilize this in all areas of your life, your relationship to, working on health and fitness, because you can begin to use hypnotic language in any situation where the unconscious mind is involved, which is all scenario. Now, of course, don't use hypnotic language too much when you're driving or at all. In fact, especially if you're the driver, don't use it. If you're the driver, don't use it. Instead, use normal awake language, especially when you're driving. And or anytime when you're operating heavy machinery, utilize only fully aware, fully awake type of language. Hypnotic language is very interesting because, sure, we begin with the command tonality, but what are some of the other things that will help you? Well, one is negation. Hypnotic language actually is, if you begin to understand how the unconscious mind works and how you communicate with your unconscious, you begin to understand hypnotic language better and better every day. What it does is truly it allows you to speak to the unconscious, right? So if I were to ask you to let go of an old habit that is not benefiting you, right? I would say that instead of a question like, would you like to let go of your old habit that may not be good for you? Instead, I would say, would you like to let go of your old habit that we know is not good for you? And instead, you're going to have this new behavior now, right? So it's a different command tonality that guides the individual to, because the more authoritative your hypnotic language is in your speech. And this is one of the most powerful forms of utilizing the English language. But the more you utilize that power of tonality and the deeper, you'll be able to take someone into their unconscious and help them change a behavior that may be very crucial for their growth. And that includes you. Now, let's talk for a moment about the word not. Let's say I want you to not think about a pink elephant. Not think about a pink elephant. I don't want you to think about a glass of cold drink with a lemon piece in it. And you're drinking that next to a giant elephant. Pink one. I don't want you to think about that. See, you have to think about that, right? So whenever you tell someone you don't want something, you may be hypnotically inducing that into yourself. That's not actually a positive thing. Instead, what if you suggest only good positive things to yourself? and allow yourself to actualize it because, well, naturally, you don't have to, right? You don't have to do all those things, but if you want to, your mind can naturally create these things. So to consider what hypnotic language is, there are two key pieces to begin with. One is tonality. It's an authoritative, tonality. And you begin to utilize this tonality also because it's the most convincing way of speaking a language, because it goes to the unconscious. And as you do that, you'll find that it's easy to have success. It's easy to have what you want because of your tone, Now, next, let's talk a little bit about something else. Hypnotic language isn't just about using your tone or your negation. We should talk about why negation is important and how to process that. And when you understand negation, what you'll understand is, wow, don't think of a pink elephant. Literally, don't meant nothing. Essentially, I'm saying think of a pink elephant, right? So what happens if you say, I don't want to lose money? What happens when you say, I don't want to lose this relationship? I don't want to mess up my presentation, I don't want to get rejected. I don't want to miss out. All these things that you don't want, when you say it, it comes with an accompanying picture or visual or even sound and kinesthetics. You can feel it, you can see it, you can hear it. So becoming extremely aware of what actually, you're focusing on, right? Of what you're doing, what you're saying, all of those things in hypnotic language is all very important. Now, the word not, right? How do you use it in hypnotic language? You can say, well, look, I don't want you to think about buying right now. If you were in sales, imagine telling your client, I don't want you to think about buying right now. I don't want you to choose this package yet until you feel totally good and amazing and congruent about it now. Now, that's very, very different than a normal sales pitch, because you are suggesting without resistance. When people hear the word, don't think about it, don't worry about it, don't think about it, don't whatever, right? Now, sure, are there times that people are like, oh, I pick up on what you're doing? Or are there times that people might be like, in fact, picking up on what you're doing is very, 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 very slim of a possibility. Because most people just think that's how, when you speak, people don't think about it that much and break down all of your linguistic structures, right? So when you use the word not, you can also use it in other situations like, hey, look, I don't want you to feel so good yet, because the better you feel, the more success you have. Are you sure you're ready to handle that much success and happiness within a month? Because you can have that now. That's a bunch of hypnotic language, right? Once you begin to utilize the word not, look, I don't need you to think about being a multi-millionaire. You could and you would absolutely become that if you just want it, right? If you just allow yourself to want it. You don't need to think about how to make $1 million this month or $100,000 this month, Now, notice how I said you don't need to think about making $100,000 a month. That's the speech. That's the negation, And then lastly, you may find, is actually the phrase, you may find great success as you listen to the upgrade training, participate, and even listen to the podcast and share the podcast. You may find ridiculous, success in a way that is because you are evolving. Now, here's why I'm telling you this. This is a really good, easy training for you to share with other people around you. Because as they change, as they evolve, as they change, they literally are your environment. Your environment evolves. And as your environment evolves, you evolve inevitably. So it's actually in your best interest to have this shared with your friend. Send them to our team or go on the website and have them purchase their own training where they can keep track of all these things. Now, let me say this. When you begin to consider that achieving all your goals can actually happen, you would want to set more goals. You absolutely would, right? You would write 90 years of goal ahead of time. This is me reminding you, continue if you are not done yet, and if you have not even started, begin right now. Because one of the most important, if not the most important thing, isn't just, getting into a trance state, relaxing, and, it isn't just these things, It isn't just using the hypnotic language of, don't think about it, right? Don't need to think about buying more right now. Instead, what I want you to consider is that, okay, if I'm in a trance state, right? If I want to suggest something, it's a very gentle, nice trance. It's you may find that. I can say you may find massive success as you listen to this. You may find ridiculously amazing amount of happiness, new relationship, just everything that's so good will come to your life. Now that's something that you want to have in your mind, right? Don't you think? And so that can actually, when accepted, become something very natural for you. You may find that happening. Now, what I just did was I gave you a bunch of suggestions, but I began with you may find that. So use that abundantly and practice. Practice using you may find that. You may know that, you may feel that you're gonna progress and continue to grow, and it'll be easy for you to double, triple, quadruple your income this year, perhaps this month. All of that is possible. Don't even think about it. No need to think about it. It just may happen. Yes? All of those 3 fundamental skills have been included in what I just said. Enjoy yourself, and I hope that you really utilize what I have just shared with you. Thank you.